It's actually a great example of the whole VAR debate. We are now so enthralled to an incredibly literal interpretation of the rules, to the idea that all that matters is the letter of the law and not the spirit, that the goal is ruled out despite the fact that it was a goal.
A weekend of football that delivered drama at levels Bridgerton season 4 can never even dream about. Manchester City, worse than Jack Doherty at a golf tournament for much of the match, but still win at Liverpool in a game which went from the sublime to the ridiculous. We still have a title race, people, even though this was a weekend of happiness in the Hathaway house. Arsenal 3, haters 0 in the Granit Xhaka Memorial Derby in Manchester. Michael Carrick's revivalism continues. 4 straight wins. Whatever United are on, I want some. And Everton come back from behind at Fulham. Are these the end of days? Don't even contemplate that, because they might just be. So let's repress the theological and dig into the football with my friend in pod, the Crown Prince of Harrogate, the Ismail Assar of words. It's Mr. Rory Smith.
How you doing, Rog?
Oh, I'm doing all right. How are you holding up, love?
I had a great sporting weekend. I had one of my highlights of my sporting year this weekend.
What, Liverpool losing against Manchester? Is this repression? Is this repression weekly, Raw?
It had nothing to do with football. I took my son and some of his friends to see the Keighley Cougars, who are our local rugby league team. Rugby league, the proper version of rugby. It was, as it always is in Britain these days, raining. The pitch was an absolute mudbath. And they were playing the Midlands Hurricanes. Names in rugby league are much more like names in American sports, Rog. And it was a cup match, so it's the Challenge Cup, which is the rugby league version of the FA Cup. It's quite a prestigious tournament, 130 years old. If the Tudors won this, they would get a money-spinning game against one of the bid sides from rugby league.
Money spinning? Do we mean like $27.50?
I think if they are on TV, they might get... It's one of those, like as it is in the FA Cup, where they might get enough money to see them through the season from one game if they're on TV. If the draw, which is this evening, goes their way. 5 minutes to go, Rog. They're down by 6 points, which in rugby league is $2. They're $2 down. And you kind of think, well, they've done okay, they've done well, but it's not to be this year. And then, under this pouring rain, there is this incredible turnaround. 2 tries, bit like touchdowns, in 3 minutes. They win it in the final 30 seconds. The whole place erupts. Ed, my little boy, and his friends are waving their flags and doing their clappers and going bananas. And it was a genuinely uplifting sporting triumph. So we're waiting now to see if they get one of the heavy hitters. This is going to sound slightly parochial. Wigan, St Helens. These are the names that could be coming to Keighley. We're very excited. So it was, despite everything, a genuinely nice sporting weekend for me.
Oh, memories and repression are all you need to get through life for the moment, Raw. Want to give huge thanks to Bank of America, official bank of US soccer, and the FIFA World Cup 2026 for supporting the Men in Blazers media network. Discover what's possible in sports and in life. What would you like the power to do? But over here, I don't know if you've heard, slightly lesser than your Keighley experience. We're all fresh off the Super Bowl, in which, honestly, the real MVP was Seattle kicker Jason Myers. Kicked a record-setting 5 field goals last night. Dude is no surprise. His roots are a serious soccer player. That was his first love. I think he was state soccer champion in high school at Mater Dei Catholic High School in San Diego. I've heard he's an Arsenal fan, which could be further proof that everything is coming up Gooner this season. Raw. The kickers, I know Harry Kane's talked about finishing his career as a kicker. I do wonder how far and how consistently Dominic Szoboszlai could kick a field goal. Well,
he's got some spare time now, Dominic Szoboszlai, for a week. He could come over and have a go. Logically, they should be good at it, right? I mean, I know the ball is a different shape, but I think for a professional soccer player, someone who can kick the ball as hard as Dominic Szoboszlai, it shouldn't be that much of a challenge, although he wouldn't have opportunity to get it to bend as he does with a free kick. I don't think... My understanding is, I'm not an expert, you don't want to get a lot of bend on kicks in American football. I
wonder how many... I mean, this is where I'm going to start. You talk about a different size. The soccer ball has, I believe, a much higher trampoline effect than an NFL ball, which is like kicking a brick, to be candid. I kicked a field goal. I think I'd hit one from 35 yards. It was like I can still feel that unbelievable. It was like kicking a wall, honestly. But it's the football is a much more efficient shape for flight. The soccer ball, you can't kick a spiral with an NFL ball. Iron Robin, though, I believe he could kick the ball at like 118 miles an hour. He could be good from 60 yards or so, don't you think, Rob?
You'd back him, surely. You'd back most set-piece takers. I mean, it would be fascinating if Kane got his wish and, did another couple of years at Bayern Munich and then signed a contract with the Packers or the Steelers. That would be an incredible kind of cross-pollination. Think of the merch, Rog.
It'd be genuinely remarkable to watch because I spent a lot of time with NFL kickers. We used to have a lot of kickers and punters on the show. And I grew to really be quite fascinated by the art. It's really misunderstood, not unlike a goalkeeper in the Premier League. They're all like, none of the coaches are really kickers or punters. So if we make a single mistake, we're just disposable. It's really the mental side of the game which sets them apart. I think a footballer could easily kick the ball from 40 yards, 45 yards under no pressure. But it's the mental crucible which does it. And having said that, watching Beto kick the ball over the bar, something that he utterly specialises in from all places on the field, Raw. If I was his agent, I'm just saying. That
could be the market they need to look into. It's not people who can kick the ball into the goal.
Yeah.
It's who puts it over the bar most reliably. That's your market for future NFL kickers.
The Everton NFL connection just got so hot, it's unbelievable. To the football in 1 second. Before we get there, I do want to thank you for all your lovely emails, meninblazers@gmail.com, about my book. I actually got, here it is, Raw. Smells a new book. I got my first copy of The Real Thing on Thursday, mailed out to San Francisco. I actually handed the first copy that I ever touched to Billy Joe Armstrong from Green Day at our live show. It is an incredibly lovely moment to get the first one in your hands, to break that spine. It's kind of, it's a very old school technology, and you kind of look at it and you're like, how did I do that? And then you're also like, why did I do that? But it is very, very moving.
In that sense, it's not akin to having a child, isn't it? You hold it in your hands and you think, how did I do this and why?
By the way, those were the tips. Wow, and how did that just happen? I don't even know. I do want your name's in here, bro. Your name is in this book.
It better be. I'll be furious if it's not.
It's all over it. You demanded, I think, 12 mentions. I worked out the first 3 or 4 were easy. The others were just a little bit of creative writing. But God bless all of you for your pre-orders. Go to our website. The link is in the old show notes. When you pre-order, claim all your free stuff that I will send to you with my love and thanks. But let's start with a toast, Raw. I want to raise this first can of Michelob Ultra to the brain behind last night's Super Bowl victor, a man called Aden Durde. Stay with me here. He's an Englishman who ground his way from being a linebacker in the World Football League, had a cup of coffee as a player in the NFL, I think, on practice squads, and then ground his way again as a coach, all the way to becoming the Seattle Seahawks defensive coach. It's an incredible story. Became ultimately the mastermind of last night's victory and the first Briton in that incredible history, 1066 onwards, to win the Super Bowl. West Ham fan taboo, up the irons. This man who fell in love with American football long before the internet, watching as I did the Chicago Bears 1985 team, and is now remarkably being interviewed for head coaching jobs. He was asked his secret and he said, when I speak with more of an English accent, the players laugh, and if you can help people do that, that's what coaching's about. Raw, I love it. Incredibly, there's been more English winning NFL coaches than have been American winning Premier League coaches, Raw, which is a lot.
This is a sincere question, Rog. In the NFL, would he face the same kind of scepticism that an American coach would face in the Premier League?
Well, he's not a head coach. But
even so, Chris Armas would tell you that he struggled to win over the players at Manchester United, but because he was publicly American.
I think he kind of probably learnt from the Chris Armas experience. Maybe he says I'm standing on Chris Armas's shoulders. I don't know.
I like to think that it's living proof. I'm sure he's a very talented man and he's obviously worked extremely hard. It seems odd to me that the World Football League would not be like a tier above the National Football League. That seems like it's in the wrong order. But but it's kind of proof of one of the things that all British people believe, which is just that if you go to America and have a British accent, people will listen to you and do as you say, which is nice.
Yeah, I will say, God, I don't know if that carries for me, Raw, in any way, shape or form. But ultimately, it's all contextual. If Chris Armas had led the defence that kicked ass, took names, and was just one of the most devastating the game's ever seen, I think people would put respect on the Armas name. But it is an incredible origin story. His rise is utterly remarkable. To you, to the joy, and to head coaching wonders to come. By the way, talking about the NFL, we are going to Houston. A friendly reminder for the people of that great city and the great state of Texas. March 4th, come join JJ Watt and a slew of amazing guests, including, rumour has it, Hakeem the Dream Olajuwon, just a hero of mine, at the Rice University Brockman Hall for Opera, the best Rice since Declan, for our Soccer's Coming Home World Cup Countdown Show, 99 Days Out Live, presented by Bank of America, official bank of US Soccer, and the FIFA World Cup 2026. And much like every time I go to Texas, it's going to be an amazing night full of laughter, joy, footballing insight and passion, maybe even some of the meat sweats. Tickets are on sale at the link below. Come be with us, because I can't wait to be with you. Let's get raw to the football and start with...
Do we have to?
Yes! Ecstasy! Because you're an objective journalist, Raw.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it gives me no pleasure to read this scoreline. Liverpool 1, Manchester City 2. A game that felt definitive before kickoff. One that's more than just about the football, the clash of these two teams. I don't like to be hyperbolic. It does feel like it's about a revelation of human truth, or at least during Pep's time and Klopp's time, about the outcome of the Premier League. I think all 8 of the last winners have come out of this game, and that's more important than human truth, if we're being honest, right? But this one, Klopp gone, Pep, thinking about it, should we say both teams just one win in the league in 2026. Liverpool out the title race, 4 points back from 5th and the final Champions League place. City knew a defeat, they could also be out the title race too. Raw, this is two teams who had it all, suddenly looking and sounding a bit like Henry Hill in the last scene of Goodfellas, where he says, and I get to live the rest of my life like a schnook. They're not themselves, Raw.
No, they are both what might kindly be described as being in transition, Rog, I think. Liverpool's is a little bit more pronounced, a little bit more desperate than Man City's, but it did feel really significant for both teams. It was a diminished game, but it was still a really important one, because City had to win to keep tabs on Arsenal, and that's all they can do now, really, is just keep Arsenal honest in the title race. And Liverpool kind of needed to win, because otherwise they're going to lose touch with 4th and 5th and those Champions League spots. So as much as it was a little bit, I think we said this on Friday, a little bit of a reminder of kind of how far both have fallen, it was arguably almost as significant as some of the games they played that were proper title deciders.
Yeah, I mean, the game opened as a reflection of that. There was frenzy. There was also mistake-ridden football. Two teams desperate to make a statement, but also immensely aware of their own vulnerability at the same time. Within 2 minutes, Erling Haaland blew a chance, your leader in the Golden Boot clubhouse. But I think last 12 games since Christmas, no goals in open play, also never scored at Anfield. It's called foreshadowing, children. The opening, all City. Pep had Marmouche and Semenyo played quite narrow. Liverpool struggled to pick them up. City pressed Liverpool back. 67% possession in that first half hour. 10 shots in the opening half. Liverpool had one sublime moment. A ball threaded through exquisitely towards Mo Salah, who was almost so shocked that the ball came to his feet, he utterly blew the chance. Mo knows that old Mo, a.k.a. young Mo, would have scored that.
I think he certainly would have made more of it than he did. You're right, it did seem to kind of take him by surprise that the ball managed to make its way through to him in that space. But when he took it, he didn't look like a player who had any confidence that he knew what to do with it. And that's the big transformation in Salah that we've seen in the last few games since he came back from AFCON. He's had chances, he's been involved, he's looked dangerous. But in those moments where he used to be so decisive, he looks riddled with doubt, to be perfectly honest. And the same thing happened. It's why Mark Guehi was able to get across and block it.
Yeah, there was a lovely moment talking about Guehi when Ekitike was sprung by Vert quite excellently. But Guehi, immense in the one-on-one. It was their hero against your new hero, and your new hero bosses it. By the way, Guehi booed by the Anfield faithful for his non-move. Not because he was a player of an ex-rival or anything, for the non-move rule, which is a new one to me.
It's not that new, unfortunately. There is a famous example that I always go back to, which was when Arsenal booed the Argentine striker Gonzalo Higuain, who you'll remember played for Real Madrid and Napoli and Juventus, played very badly in a World Cup final. He was linked with a move to Arsenal in 2013, I think. Arsenal never made a bid. I'm not even sure they were interested in him. It was just some stuff on Twitter. And he turned up playing for Napoli in a pre-season friendly and got booed by the Emirates, and he must have been completely baffled as to what was going on. So
if that was the rule, Everton fans would just spend every game, every minute of just booing everybody that we're linked to that never come to us. Probably quite cathartic.
It's very modern football, but I was expecting Gay to be booed at Anfield because of the sort of the image that he had chosen City over Liverpool. Although I don't think that's actually what happened. It doesn't surprise me, doesn't impress me. I'm not delighted by it, but it feels predictable that he should get booed.
Godspeed. By the way, the game settled into a pattern. It was almost like House of Dragon City Liverpool stuff. Highly anticipated, truly disappointing on the eye. First half, eerily foreshadowing the tough watch Super Bowl to come. The only man I think who would have enjoyed watching it was probably Xabi Alonso. I'll have choices, he was probably thinking as he watched it. Liverpool fans knew, though, City always fade in the second half. And by always, I mean the last couple of games of this season. Game was wide open. Suddenly Szoboszlai, second half, leading the charge, bypassing the midfield. Liverpool upping the tempo, went more direct. Spaceman spam in our Discord said as Anfield came alive, it's suddenly like this game is the goal mouth is lava. Liverpool then won a free kick, I think 30 yards out, was it? Dead on. And you knew as soon as it was awarded, it would be one man and only one man who'd step up. Dominic Szoboszlai, far out enough that the keeper only wanted the two-man wall to improve visibility. Commentary actually electric to this. Lee Dixon noted that Donnarumma was so relaxed on his goal line. Lee said, he's saying, try and beat me from there, he's saying, and Dom stepped up and did just that and then some. I don't know how you describe the airbender, the movement, the power, the clinic. It was like a howitzer, power, but precision, controlled precision. It left Gigi Donnarumma, the great Gigi Donnarumma, utterly flat-footed, Raw. I mean, I don't know how to describe it other than using the word nipple tingling.
Yeah, probably even better than his free kick against Arsenal. Szoboszlai's had this in his locker for a long, long time, but he's produced 3 or 4 this season that have been truly spectacular. From that range, against that goalkeeper in that game, like a genuinely incredible goal to score. I would quibble a little bit with the effectiveness of Man City's wall. I've got to admit, I think from that range, either don't have a wall at all, or have a proper wall. Because what Szoboszlai does is he uses 2 Liverpool players to create a barrier who then split and the ball appears through them, travelling at the speed of light, and it's too late for Donnarumma to react. I'm not sure when Donnarumma goes through it with his goalkeeping analyst, of which I assume he has many, I'm not sure they'll do that again.
Whatever. I mean, that ability. It's like when Ronaldo had that long period of not scoring from a free kick that was like just almost infinite. That was the kind of free kick that was going in through Ronaldo's mind as he was about to strike the ball. It was utterly stunning. Just the way he got it to move away from the keeper. I mean, boom. That shot of him clicking his fingers into the camera, it felt so joyous, so rapturous, such a release, a relief. This game could only go one way now. 9 goals for Dom Szoboszlai on the season. Currently in negotiation for a new contract. I did think the one problem his agents probably got is that the Szoboszlai name, just so many Scrabble letters in there, doesn't allow the cop to do a catchy version of Give Mo His Dough for negotiation purposes.
There's a curious lack of songs for Dominic Szoboszlai, which I think is related to the length of his surname. But there is one that's really good to the tune of American Pie that just hasn't caught on, which is a real shame because he more than anybody else after this season deserves a song.
Who wrote that? Like, that's a stroke of genius. And why is it not caught on? How does it not caught on? Liverpool is awash with song.
It is, and it's also a club, I think, this is a sort of private theory of mine, Rog. I think it's a club that needs a song to soundtrack a season, to get the stadium sort of illuminated and invigorated. They need to have something they want to sing, and last season it was A Live Bird Upon My Chest. Previously it's been a whatever. It feels to me like if they adopted the Szoboszlai American Pie version, which I'm sure I've heard them sing once, then maybe that would help. But it is odd to think that, a player who, apart from Hugo Ekitike, has been by far and away Liverpool's best player this season, you don't really hear his name being sung by the Kop, which is strange.
I once had to interview Jamie Webster as he sang every song and told the backstory of every song that he'd written or refracted for the Liverpool fan base. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done. And I did sit there and just think, oh my God, they have all the songs. And ultimately, I love your theory, Raw. Like we've watched football in a tactical realm. We've watched football in the modern, just about duels. It's just about duels and set pieces. I like the post-duel and set piece world you're taking us to, where ultimately it's just the songs that win it.
It's about music. Yeah. You need to have who has the best music.
Yeah, we're in a post-duels world. It's just about the tunes, man. It's about the vibes. This was, by the way, Rio will probably have a song before poor Dom. There was a side-by-side of Arne Slot, by the way, and Pep Guardiola in this moment. If you've not seen it, find it. One man joyfully exhaling, Pep Guardiola flinging himself back into a seat in utter agony, which was Scorsesian. And well done, match directors, for giving the world that, because City seemed dead. They were adrift in the second half again. That was the narrative. Anfield rapturous. Then, out of nothing, almost competitive muscle memory as much as anything, a deflected cross, battled for by Haaland, who nodded it down into the Kenny Loggins danger zone. And that wily alley cat, Bernardo Silva, broke the offside trap. Szoboszlai kept him on. Proved that football raises you up and then brings you crashing right back down. Feeling it was reinforced within 7 minutes. Nunes sprang through on goal. Alisson charged out, went through the player. Craig Pawson pointed to the spot. I'm going to stop there for a second because I think you're pissed off at this award, at pace, Alisson crashing through the player, but ... Just address it from the Liverpool POV.
No, so I think it was a penalty, but there is part of me, and I'm conscious this isn't really written into the rules, there's part of me that always, whether it's Liverpool or not, feels slightly odd about penalties that are awarded when the ball has gone. That ball is going out of play. Mateus Nunes is not getting to it. And yet Alisson clatters into him. And I'm pretty sure that when I was younger watching football, that meant those penalties weren't awarded. So there's a sense memory for me. And it was interesting on the British commentary, the commentator said, does that make a difference? As though it was a sincere question. Because I think a lot of people of my generation are of the view that if the ball's gone, it's okay. It kind of negates the foul. Obviously it doesn't, that's not in the laws, so it was a penalty. But it felt of a piece with Liverpool's season that in the first half they were quite anemic. The second half they played quite well, and yet they still, in those final 10 minutes, contrived to lose the football match.
Yeah, it was ultimately shades of decision making that undid them, and then the agony of the penalty, which kind of gave you a narrative to agonise about, which wasn't your fault, almost overcloaked that. But it was a remarkable. By the way, when we were kids, it wouldn't have even been a penalty whether the ball was in or the ball was out. Point, it was just like genuine good, fair tackle, lad. it's like when I've said this to Jim Beglin when I met him at the Hill Dickinson. Like when he's commentating, there's very little few tackles that he watches, bringing that old school mentality to the modern game, where he's like, "Oh, there's nothing in that." Is what he always says. As like a player is decapitating. Nothing in that. God bless. And up stepped Erling Haaland. It had to be him. They never scored in Anfield, Erling Haaland. Had barely touched the ball in the second half, Haaland. Title race on his shoulders. And he finished strong and true and confidently. Again, first ever goal at Anfield. Watching him roar away was more terrifying. I think it was or akin to watching like a Norwegian Chucky or Freddy Krueger come back to life and kill again. Raw, City, somehow back like the Muppets. But the performance, it was like a poker game where Liverpool went all in and won a massive hand on Szoboszlai's free kick, only for City essentially on the brink of crapping out to just bluff their way through two hands and gut out a win.
Yeah, I think what has defined City this season, and it's difficult to kind of get your head around given what we know about Guardiola and kind of how we talk about City, they have been defined by individuals. A lot of it is Erling Haaland's competitive spirit, his ruthless finishing, his relentlessness. There's been patches of the season where it's been Ryan Cherky's invention or Phil Foden getting into that Foden pocket and scoring the Foden goal. But they haven't put together that many kind of complete performances. And I think that was true at Anfield as well, that They didn't dominate Liverpool. It was a little bit of a smash and grab in the second half, but they do have the individuals to deliver when things are finely poised, and that was a finely poised game.
Yeah, let history remember, to your point, it was still the McAllister looping a certain shot in on goal, only for Donnarumma to swoop and save it, actually with the ball behind him, like some kind of giant Italian wandering albatross. And then the end trademark, the Bedlam trademark. Really what we watched was Premier League, Benny Hill mashup, essentially an empty net goal ripped from the NHL. Premier League, best league in the world, but suddenly it was transformed into one of those old English traditions where they get a giant cheese and just fling the wheel down the hill and every single villager risks life and limb to chase it. Apart from those villagers, what were Erling Haaland and Dom Soberslide? By the way, which if we could do that, throw a cheese wheel down the hill and have Dom and Erling Haaland go for it, that rating would be like, make the guy who climbed up the tall building. It would look minuscule compared to that, wouldn't it, Raw? Can you explain why the goal was ruled off? It's harder to understand than the skier penis controversy.
So ultimately, no, I can't really explain it. Churchy shoots extremely slowly. Soberslide and Haaland chase it. Soberslide trying to close.
By the way, two mates from their Red Bull days.
Of course, yeah.
Great mates.
A Red Bull sprint. So they're chasing. Haaland wants to tap it in and claim the goal. Soberslide wants to clear it off the line. Soberslide pulls Haaland back. Haaland responds by pulling Soberslide back. The ball goes in. Basically, whatever they've done is irrelevant because the ball has gone into the goal. The goal, logically, in terms of kind of feel and vibe, should stand. To most fans watching that game, that felt like a goal. Officially, according to the rules, and the rules are very important here, Rog, Haaland pulling Soberslide back prevented Soberslide clearing it off the line. That's probably true. I would say that is a reasonable thing to think. But because before that, Soberslide had pulled Haaland back, that is denial of a goal-scoring opportunity, which means he gets a red card. So instead of... It's actually a great example of the whole VAR debate. We are now so enthralled to an incredibly literal interpretation of the rules, to the idea that all that matters is the letter of the law and not the spirit, that the goal is ruled out and Soberslide sent off because he denied a goal-scoring opportunity. Despite the fact that it was a goal.
The ball went in. Yeah. That's the thing that makes your brain melt. Gary Neville on the English comm said, I just don't get this. He's fouled him. That's the foul that feels so unjust. I know there's rules, but there's the smell of the game. No referee should disallow that goal, but it's going to be disallowed. Talk about killjoy. Just let the goal be. Do you agree, Raw? Should we be playing to the spirit of the game in the VAR era? Because I've got a theory on why this ultimately was disallowed, but I'd love to know what you think here. Because in law, as someone that did an awful law degree, there's the letter of the law and then there's the equity of the law. Really, what Gary Neville's talking about, the spirit of the law, I guess what he calls the smell of the game.
Yeah, I would be of that view as well. I think I've always called it like a moral offside. And people always laugh because they think it's a joke, but I don't mean it as a joke. I mean it completely seriously. I think most fans, when you're watching a game and when you've watched enough football, they understand instinctively when a player is getting an advantage from being in an offside position. And if it's just a sort of a toenail or a nose or whatever it might be, it does not feel to you as though that counts as offside. We used to have the concept of level, and because we can now watch everything in minute detail, in ultra HD at slow motion, you can see that actually level didn't exist. In the same way as there's always a winner in a horse race because you can take it to the photo finish. The problem is that doesn't feel like offside to fans. And it's the same with this one. It's a really good example of it. That to most fans, Liverpool, City, neutral, Seahawks, Patriots, whoever it might be, you watch that and think, well, just give the goal. The two fouls in your head, it's not that the two fouls cancel each other out, it's the fact that they're completely irrelevant to what happens. Churchy scores, so ignore everything else.
That's actually right out the NFL. The two fouls offset each other, goal. But here's the thing I did think about. If the title gets close, ... and comes down to goal difference, do you think the Premier League wants to award a title to a team with 115 charges against it on that goal?
I'm sure that is not something that we could allege, Rog, but... there's a world in which City haul Arsenal back in and miss out on a title by one goal. That is possible that it suddenly, that decision costs Manchester City a title. I think that's not that likely, to be honest. But I guess what the Premier League might say is the opposite. Can Manchester City win that title on a goal that technically shouldn't have stood? And I get I get the position the VARs are in, I get the position that Craig Pawson, the referee, is in, that you have to go by the letter of the law, but it just highlights to me this issue that we have now, which is that in an age of VAR, in an age of video and slow motion and forensic analysis where we have the tools, we're going to have to start thinking about the laws differently. Because to most fans, that was a goal, and it's insane that it was ruled out for two things that basically happened and had no effect on the ball going in the goal or not.
I mean, they should have awarded it just for hilarity points, to be candid, because and lo, the game ended in just yuck comedy and outrage. City win at Anfield for just the second time in Pep's 10 years. By the way, he looked like a shattered man at the final whistle. You see just how much all of this is taken out of him. But City first, a broken team, a vulnerable City, a winning City. A City, as you said at the top, in transformation, kind words that honestly feel so un-Pep in so many ways. Keep clawing on. They got 13 games left to overhaul a 6-point deficit. Arsenal lead at the top of the table. I listened to the Sky coverage after the game, Raw, and it immediately flipped from City being vulnerable, must win, have to stay into to immediately, final whistle goes to City know how to win titles. They put the pressure back on Arsenal. But the actual City that I'm seeing, Raw, is a City who are much less like potent, inevitable Manchester City title winners by right, and more kind of like of the KC Athletic Manchester by the sea variety.
They're not a City as we recognise them. I think that there's a real kind of cognitive dissonance around City, that Guardiola's great teams blow opponents away and they're vastly superior and they produce these kind of complete performances that you can't pick apart.
Controlling.
They control their destiny, whereas this City are a little bit more chaotic. They are, as I said, much more kind of reliant on individuals to prove decisive, which is in keeping, I suppose, with the nature of the game in the Premier League at the moment.
Which is just about tunes.
Just about tunes. Who's got the best chance? Just give points for the best chance. No, I think there's a desire to construct a title race where it looks an awful lot like there maybe isn't a title race. That is, everyone who is in the business of selling football for hits or for paper sales or whatever it might be, there's a kind of commercial imperative to make it look tight. I suppose logically it's 6 points and Arsenal still have to go to the Etihad, so it's not over. But City, I agree, are being judged by what they were rather than what they are. I think that's what's happening. That we're looking at City and thinking it's City, they can win 10 in a row. I don't think there's any evidence that City can win 10 in a row.
Tenses matter. Past tense, present tense, ... future tense. But let's touch upon Liverpool for a moment. Their fans experienced all of the emotion. Sobosai's free kick felt like it would be talked about for generations. But then two sloppy defensive moments allowed City to eat their way back to ultimately making the free kick irrelevant. That's some of the pain, burying it, leaving it almost as a gaping wound. The record fourth loss in added time this season. The theatrical added salt in the wound of Sobbo's eventual last second red card. Your defending champions are now 4 points off Champions League qualification in fifth place. They are very much going from title defence to outside looking in, Raw, with severe financial repercussions if they miss out, Raw.
Yeah, I think this is a really significant moment. Obviously, you will be unsurprised to learn, Rog, I've had many thoughts about this in the last 24 hours. They've got Sunderland and Forest next, both away in the league, both of which are difficult games. Liverpool's record against Forest is awful. It's a really big game for Forest in a way that even kind of United and Arsenal at the City Ground isn't. Sunderland, obviously, one of the stories of the season. At the same time, United and Chelsea have found form. Villa are 8 points ahead of them anyway. All three of those teams have relatively kindly fixtures in the next few weeks. It's a really unpredictable league, but if you were to look on paper, you'd say actually they're going to pick up points between now and kind of the start of March. I think Liverpool now have no margin for error because the gap is big, and it's conceivable that by the time you get to the start of March, they are 9-10 points off the Champions League places, and at that point, and I don't say it with any great pleasure, at that point I think it becomes a real issue for Arne Slot because within the club, there has been a real acceptance that this was going to be a kind of delayed transition year from Klopp, and that's fine. I think most fans would have taken that, particularly given that they won the lead last season, but also given what happens in the summer with Diogo Jota. Most fans would have said, yeah, look, fine, finish fourth, not really in the title race, not a problem, little bit inconsistent, no issue at all, have to rebuild. I think missing out on the Champions League puts a lot of the work that they did last summer, and that I think they've been planning to do this summer, to retool the squad, to make the team younger. I think it puts it all in jeopardy. Does they need not just the prestige of the Champions League, but the money from it? And it means that you might end up with this kind of half-accomplished rebuild, and that's a real issue.
Oh, bite your arm off for a half-accomplished rebuild, I got to tell you. To happier places, yes, the Emirates, Arsenal 3, Sunderland 0 in that Granit Xhaka Memorial Derby, which the quadruple is still on. Step 1. Mission nearly accomplished, qualifying for the Carabao Cup final midweek, Arsenal's first in 6 long years, by clipping Chelsea. We'll talk more about the quadruple, a feat so impossible, almost feels mythical, like the crock of gold at the end of the rainbow. But into this one, just 2 defeats in their previous, 35 games, Arsenal facing Sunderland, who'd won just 1 in their last 28 in the league against Arsenal Football Club. Opening exchanges. By the way, after a week of new ridiculousness, seems to be ridiculousness about Arsenal every single bloody week. This week, Arteta had to, in his press conference, defend from Paul Scholes' accusations that the Gunners would be, quote, the most boring team to win the Premier League. And I love this one because Arsenal, I think in the first 5 minutes, I counted 3 back flicks. Each one was just like a finger in a ginger eye. Sunderland, respect, gritty, organised, exactly what we expected. They pressed high, boldly at times. Then Arsenal ratcheted up the intensity. I think Rice had a long-range finder from the left-hand edge of the box. And then 42nd minute, before the anxiety could crackle around the Emirates, Zubimendi stepped up from a similar place and furled a precise stroke of the ball with the touch of a tender lover, clipped the post on the way in for Chef's kiss. It was fitting to me in the Granit Xhaka shadow game that it was a deep-lying midfielder that scored the tribute goal for Arsenal, 6th goal of the season for Zubi, never scored more than 4 before. What a player he is, Rob.
An incredible signing as well, because I think in the summer, you wouldn't necessarily have looked at Arsenal and thought that the obvious place to reinforce is the midfield. But Arteta had wanted that sort of player for a long, long time. Someone who could dictate tempo a little bit better maybe than Declan Rice does. Someone who could kind of vary the range of passing. He's made them, not single-handedly, but he's kind of taken them up a notch. Just his presence gives them a little bit of guile, a little bit of smarts that maybe they were lacking a touch of last year. And he has thrived in that team. Yeah,
and as precise and beautiful as the goal was, celebration, possibly even more so. Zubimendi's teammate and friend Mikel Merino in the stands watching on, that stress fracture keeping him out for up to 4 months, and Zubimendi scored. And then in Phil Marino's trademark celebration running around the corner flag, which Marino uses to honour his father, who was a pro and used to do the very same. It was really a poignantly beautiful moment. And also, I think, a reflection of the feel-good kind of team bonding, which is ultimately, for this massive squad, the engine which is driving the title charge.
Yeah, you need that togetherness, don't you? They've got a lot of players, and managing that kind of depth is obviously a huge privilege. It's an advantage for Arsenal to have the strongest squad in the league, but it's also quite dangerous, because if you have players who aren't playing, if they're not happy, if they feel that they should be in the team ahead of somebody else, which all players will do, you need to kind of have them all signed up to a project, to an ambition, like a belief, to keep them on board. And it's difficult to do that over the course of a season, as like resentments start to build up and frustrations. And Arteta seems to be doing that so far.
I mean, credit Sunderland. They really did make this game a rumble. Admirable mix of muscle and ball skill. Defended set pieces really well in this game, let the record show, with confidence. Relief then, when 66th minute, Arteta rang in the substitutes, sent on his finishers. They inherited the game from his starters and did what they said on the tin. 2 goals from Victor Gyökeres. First, off his own heavy touch in the box. Second touch was that of Thor's hammer. Slid in on his arse to thunder home. We'll say the Sunderland defenders almost gave him a guard of honour on that one. Repeated 93rd minute after a great break from a very generous Martinelli to kill off the game. And Sunderland, really an awkward challenge, defanged ultimately with comfort. We talked about Gyökeres last week, how his discomfort is kind of a human agony. I was really elated to see him score. Actually now in successive games, do his Bain Marcelli with increasing pride and confidence as opposed to a question mark. Suddenly, a little bit of crackling Big Vic energy, as they say. 6 goals in his last 8 across 3 competitions. Club's top scorer in the league with 8, 13 for the season overall. Raw. Is it too early to change your position on Gyökeres, aka what will Arsenal haters have to fling like mud into Arteta's eyes now? He's a little more potent.
I think the issue with Gyökeres isn't so much what he's doing; it's he's been judged for being something that he wasn't meant to be. Part of the attraction for Gyökeres, I think, to Arsenal was an awareness that they want to have a variety of ways to attack. So you've got him, but you also have Kai Havertz who can play through the middle. You've got Gabby Jesus who can play through the middle. You don't need to have Erling Haaland, because if you have Erling Haaland, you have to play Erling Haaland all of the time. He has to start every game. Gyökeres was bought as an option, and look, he was very expensive for that, but he's kind of done what he's meant to do. As you say, he's got 8 league goals. He gives them a slightly more physical presence. He's a threat in behind in a way that maybe Havertz isn't. Jesus obviously has had his injury issues, but he's more about kind of clever movement. Gyökeres is an out-and-out striker. You don't always need an out-and-out striker in Arteta's world. So the criticism to me seems slightly misplaced. There's been a confidence issue over the winter. I think that's probably true. It looks to me a little bit like scoring at the San Siro in the Champions League maybe changed that a little bit. It was a lovely finish. It was a big stage on which to score. He's an important weapon for Arsenal, but he has been for most of the season.
I mean, you're talking about the criticism of Arsenal. I do have a theory about why Arsenal derive so much hate from opposing fans. It is complex. There's micro factors. Them being so good, then so vulnerable under Wenger. All the way to wonky tifos and like ridiculous accusations of over celebration. But as I watched them climb that last step, the hardest step after 3 consecutive second place finishes, in a football world where many fans feel better about others' mistakes rather than their own team's wins, it's very, very healing for a lot of fan bases to unite and just say, oh, look at Arsenal, bottlers. That was like football was one shared truth. And watching Mikel Arteta try and fail and try and fail and try and fail and go again. I mean, I think that the thing that makes football fans ever more furious is kind of a sense of who do Arsenal think they are with their aspirations and making good on them. I think there's nothing more infuriating in English culture, also an English culture that's built on a legacy of the class system, than a person or an institution or a football club who don't know their place, Raw. And Arsenal's place is they're meant to suffer, and they're certainly not meant to experience ultimate jubilation.
Yeah, I think that's probably true for certainly like a generation of fans because it's 21 years since they won the league, and that is a substantial period of time in which a lot of fans will have come of age only knowing one version of Arsenal. And I guess to me, Arsenal are the third of the 3 big clubs. That is their historic role. But yeah, if you are less than probably 32, 33, you won't remember Arsenal being anything other than the team that came close, had these kind of slightly above their station ideas about how football should be played, and generally at the end lost. So it is a bit of a reset mentally, maybe, to have to compute the idea that they are about to not just win the league, but win it in a really kind of imperious and dominant way. It feels at odds with what people have come to associate with Arsenal. Although I would say, Rog, just for the historic point of view, that is not what Arsenal's role has been traditionally.
But who cares about history and modern football? The last 5 minutes of ancient history. A massive win, 3 goals from open play. Lovely to see Granit Xhaka, by the way, on the pitch after the final whistle, hugging Mikel Arteta. 13 games to go, 6 points clear. It's happening, Raw, I hope. And we talked about the quadruple up top. Touch upon it very quickly. To win the title, the FA Cup, the Carabao and the Champions League, such an unprecedented feat. No one's done it in English football. I think Liverpool tried a couple of seasons ago, ultimately shattered them down the end, almost like a march of folly. Takes an inhuman degree of relentlessness, of energy, of intense focus and a little luck. I think it would be a 65-game season. There's a 5% chance, they said in the commentary. I don't know where they get that from. Alex COG3281 wrote on our YouTube after you and I discussed it on Friday's show. Alex wrote, people only bring up the quadruple because it's a new way to say Arsenal failed.
I agree. I think, and I thought that when it was hurled at Liverpool in whatever year it was that they went relatively close, 2022, I think. It feels like a thing that is brought up when the title looks like it's finished, to set a new challenge. It's a secret level that you unlock when you are 7 to 10 points clear at the top of the Premier League is, actually now you've got to try and win a quadruple. I don't think Arsenal will be criticised if they win the league or the Champions League. I think that the season will be presented as a triumph. If, like Liverpool, they end up with just 2 domestic cups to show for it, then they will be criticised. As I said on Friday, getting close to doing a quadruple, getting to the stage where someone can say they might do a quadruple is a real achievement. The reason no one's done it is just it's almost impossible. Arsenal are better equipped to do it than Liverpool were in 2022 because their style is much more sustainable. They don't need... That Liverpool team were reliant on that kind of manic Klopp energy. Arsenal can control games much better. They don't need to be at their best to beat everybody. They're not quite as emotional in the way they play. I would be inclined to say that Arsenal won't do it, but there is more reason to think they could than Liverpool.
We have Ben White joining us this week on YouTube. I'm going to talk about that to him. Also find out the secret to the perfect suntan. Manchester United 2. Tottenham 0, more Arsenal joy. Haters will say Manchester United, coming in off 3 straight interim-inspired Michael Carrick wins, are just repeating a cycle of caretaker bounce to bust. They've beaten Arsenal, they've beaten City, number 1 and 2 in the table. They beat a informed Fulham. How would they execute against a footballing minnow? Tottenham Hotspur, albeit Spurs undefeated in 4, unbeaten in the last 8 games against United, including that Europa League final victory. United came out the box with ambition and aggression and Bumo bashing over within 30 seconds. Spurs found their balance. Simons and Gallagher cut, thrust, guile, until essentially Spurs just self-immolated on the half hour. Cuti Romero attacked Casemiro's ankle with a stamped down ferocity that he normally reserves to assail Spurs ownership. Red card for the second time this season. His Spurs down to 10 men within half an hour. Again, their own worst enemy. We talk about Romero, and the line always is that he always plays on the edge. That's his game. But this was so way over the edge. It was just a stunningly ridiculous act in its own right. But when you put it in context and you think about leadership, you think about a squad already so thin through injury, which Romero had been talking about a lot. At Slim in our Discord asked, is Romero quiet quitting Raw? I mean, for me, it was less quiet. Is he angry quitting? Yeah,
he's definitely not quiet quitting. I was at Old Trafford for the game, and what really struck me as being particularly painful for Thomas Frank is that Spurs were quite good for half an hour. They looked really well organised. There was a period of maybe 10 minutes where they were on top, and you thought it was bubbling. It wasn't a brilliant game at that stage, but it was kind of bubbling into a genuinely interestingly poised football match because United had got this boost of momentum from Carrick. They're playing this style that suits them. But Spurs are smart and they've got some good players and they're, on paper they're better than both their lead position and Fulham. And then Romero just does something totally unnecessary, something that comes because he makes 2 mistakes in the build-up in terms of kind of going to close down and Buemo, I think, and then his position for when Casemiro receives the ball. And it just seems to be a kind of red mist descending that he's lashing out effectively. And then it's not so much that he went in with malice. I don't think he did. I think it all happened too quickly for that. But he's not able to keep his composure in those moments. And that's the issue with him. It's always been the issue with him. And it was interesting after the game that Frank was peppered with questions about Christian Romero's suitability to be captain. And Frank, who's a very positive character, seemed to kind of bat them all away as if to say, well, this is ridiculous. He's exactly what we need. We need someone who's determined and passionate. But it seems so obvious to me that Romero's attitude is disqualifying from a leadership position. He's not suited to it. That was an act that not willfully, but hugely negatively affected his team. And he does it time and time and time again. And that's an issue.
And he'll now miss the next 4 games, including the North London derby. But back to this one, United went for the kill, 38th minute, a corner that was straight off the training ground. It was honestly like watching me play chess against Magnus Carlsen. It was like checkmate in 3 moves. Bruno rolled the ball along the byline to Mainu. with movement and misdirection. Just cut back to Mbumo, 12 yards out. That ball by choice, caressed the ball with precision into the corner. By the way, credit the Spurs players for not bothering to track a single move. It was honestly like watching their brains melt in full light of day. Highly choreographed, highly coached football by Johnny Evans, apparently the assistant. But raw, delicious Carrick era Manchester United football.
And all in slow motion. It was like watching a VAR review of a corner. The fact that no Spurs players responded to what was quite obviously unfolding in front of them is extraordinary. It was, I don't want to sound negative about it, it was a really well-worked corner, but there were like 9 people in the box who should have stopped it happening.
God bless. That probably hurt Thomas Frank, probably hurt him all the more that it was his old boy for Brentford who was his executioner. Second half, credit Spurs, kept organised, kept determined. And anxiety did crackle across Old Trafford. Remember, they'd seen their side almost throw away victory the previous week against Fulham. Those fears quelled 81st minute. Dalot crossed, just missed Šeško, but Bruno far post swept the ball quite artfully home. Watching him wheel away was delirious. 200th United goal involvement. Only Wayne Rooney did it faster in the Premier League. Watching him so happy. Mainu so potent, Maguire so dominant, man. I was just like, so many happy faces at Manchester United suddenly. 4 wins in a row now for Michael Carrick. We are approaching haircut time. Raw, 6 weeks ago, Michael Carrick was rumoured to be going to Oxford United, team in a Championship relegation zone battle. Come at the hour, come at the club DNA. I mean, I don't like to be hyperbolic, but it's like watching an antidepressant at work. I mean, he could not have had a greater emotional effect if he was like starting Zoloft and Prozac at the back. What are you seeing that explains the difference? Because I'm wondering if it's possible to technically appoint him as permanent caretaker manager.
That's what they need, is the permanent interim. In fact, what they should do is sack him every month and then appoint him as his own interim. That's the solution. I think it's 2 things. One is tactical. He's playing a system that suits the players. And I guess because whether they're so relieved to be in a system they understand, whether because it's a kind of, they're trying to prove a point that when they're in a system that works for them, they are all really good players. They're playing with kind of a lightness and a fluency and a belief that is self-repeating. So the more you win, the more you believe, the more you believe, the more you win, the more you win, the more you believe. But the other is that there seems to be a real connection between him and his staff and the squad. And as he said on Saturday, the fans as well. Everyone seems to be kind of on the same page after several years, really, of absolute kind of disintegration and rancour and squabbling and infighting. He's kind of chilled everybody out a little bit. It just feels, he makes it look really easy. And look, Man United still have a difficult choice to make because they are in a false position. They're in a false situation. They're playing once a week, if that. They play West Ham midweek and then don't have a game for 10 days because they're out of the FA Cup. They should qualify for the Champions League. They should be much higher up the table than they are because without Europe, they're not playing anywhere near as much football as all the teams they want to overtake. That's a huge advantage. And Jason Wilcox, Omar Barada, the people who run Manchester United, will have to factor that in when thinking about Carrick. How much is this a sort of false position? What happens when you throw the Champions League into that? But at the same time, it's really hard to make a case not to give him the job. It's really hard to make that case. It feels like you are... The biggest reason not to appoint Michael Carrick is that it didn't really work when it was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And that's not a very good reason.
Why are we not hiring you? Ask him, it was his fault. United have 44 points, more than their entire tally from last season, 13 games still to come. Perhaps just as important, you mentioned it, 5th straight win is possible next week. Please let it happen. At Sofo in our Discord said they're playing West Ham, who just about beat themselves these days. That is not the case anymore. What could possibly go wrong? Talking about possibly going wrong, Spurs, 7 games without a win, no wins in 2026. Newcastle, then Arsenal next. I'd say poor Thomas Frank. I'm old enough to remember when he quite brilliantly trained Brentford to score within 60 seconds, 3 times on the run. He's that guy. And now he's coaching this slop. We're now in the midst of the third time in 13 months Spurs have gone 7 Premier League games without a win. It hadn't happened in the 116 years before that. A season of misery, known only to Johnny Cash in her role.
Yeah, and as you say, it might get worse because Newcastle are collapsing a little bit, so that might not be quite as challenging as it would have looked like a month or 6 weeks ago. But then the North London derby, no Christian Romero, just a sense of real drift. And to be honest, watching Thomas Frank standing next to Michael Carrick at Old Trafford, it was really striking that Frank is an excellent coach. He's obviously an excellent coach. Like, his career proves that he's a really good coach. But he's not the right fit. And I think with management, what matters more than anything else really is fit. And it just isn't. It's not there with Frank and Tottenham. And I don't quite see how he gets it back at this stage. I find it very hard to believe that there's a world in which me and you are sat here in 5 years' time and saying, do you remember all that doubt in Thomas Frank's first of his 6 seasons at Tottenham? I don't think that's a thing that can happen. It feels like a when, not an if.
We've been
and then
saying
Spurs
that for
have
weeks
to start again.
We've been saying that for. I mean, this is the weirdest. This is the weirdest situation, and this has been very, 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 very evident for a very, very long time. And I do believe, by the way, Thomas Frank will be a very good coach somewhere else, and this will be just a blip, as it was for ultimately, Tottenham for Nuno in every single regard. But let's talk about another coach in a slightly surreal predicament. Wolves won. Chelsea 3 at a wet and windy Molineux. Chelsea entered off that Carabao Cup loss to Arsenal. But Liam Rosenior, this is incredible to me. Perfect in the Premier League, 3 for 3, facing a Wolves team who have essentially been treated the way dogs are treating New York City snow piles right now. This game, a breeze. Cole Palmer hat-trick, 2 penalties, 3 goals inside 38 first half minutes. Second goal saw Cole hit 50 in all competitions for Chelsea in just his 100th start for the club. 4th Premier League hat-trick, most of any human in a men's Chelsea jersey. First Premier League player ever to score 3 first 45-minute hat-tricks during a season this in which he's missed 17 games through injury, was rumour linked to a move back home to Manchester at United during the transfer window. But the season he's been having, Raw, as much as Chelsea needed Cole Palmer needed this hat-trick.
Yeah, it's been injury hit, injury ridden. It feels as though he's lost a little bit of the kind of energy behind him that was driving him for so long. He needs a big second half of the season, last third of the season maybe. My fractions aren't great, Rog, but whatever stage of the season we're in now, he's got a lot of time to make up for, Cole Palmer. And yeah, Wolves
from a World Cup perspective, you're talking about.
From a World Cup perspective, but also from his kind of, for what he wants to be as a player more generally. It is a season that has passed him by, not through any real fault of his own, but he's barely been a presence in this Premier League season. He will want to make an impact on it for himself, for Chelsea, and yeah, in terms of getting into Thomas Tuchel's World Cup squad, that's important. But he's not really been a thing this year, Cole Palmer, and that won't sit well with him.
Yeah, I did love Liam Rosenior's post-match interview in which he was singing the praises of Cole Palmer, and then mid-sentence he realised Cole Palmer was beaming just off camera, just like drinking in the praise, leaving Rosenior cracking up. Proof that old Liam is really making Chelsea like the Office shot for shot. Cole Palmer later said, "Life under Liam Rosenior is amazing. He gives us all confidence. He lets us be ourselves, play free." In all of these words, there's real depths and subtweets, subtext, all of that. But we got to talk about Rosenior. I find it fascinating, Raw, because the game began in the shadow of his great miscontrolling of a dropping ball during Chelsea loss at Arsenal on Tuesday. He tried to control the ball, dropping as many managers do. Unfortunately for him, it just bounced, ricocheted off into the crowd. No big deal. Unless you are Liam Rosenior and the media are trying to take a bat to beat you like Robert De Niro beating up a mobster in The Untouchables. Rod, there's the signal. 7 wins in 9 games now for Rosenior, and there's the noise. And there's a lot of noise. Rosenior's already named LinkedIn Liam, constantly having to explain himself to the English media. Every press conference is a different version of how the hell did you get this job again? To which Liam has adopted a very postmodern kind of self-acclaim, self-aware, self-mocking, self-knowing kind of mix, all the selves. Before this one, he said, the lads have played it back to me on the video, and we've had a laugh about it. He said, Estevao said he can't believe I was a professional footballer. It feels every single week, Raw, Chelsea win, and every week Liam Rossini has to deliver some kind of more moral telling of a version of you got to laugh about yourself in life. He's never going to shake it, is he? He's always just one loss away from being absolutely tabloid buzzsword.
Well, it's interesting because I wonder to what extent it's less the unconventional background now and more in English, the word manage is man-age. I think that might be what's done for him a little bit, because that was a really viral moment in the most kind of important meaning of that word. That's what most kind of passing football fans now think of when they think of Liam Rossini, and that's a problem. The weird thing is, he's basically been flawless since he took the job. He's done far, not only better than you would have expected him to do having come straight from Strasbourg, he's done far better than you would have expected him to do if he had been Mauricio Pochettino or Xabi Alonso or whoever. Like, he has done as well as it has been possible to do. The 2 games he's not won, both against Arsenal in the least important competition. He doesn't really have any reason for self-doubt at this point. He can clearly do this. Whether he wins a title with Chelsea, none of us know at this stage. I guess one of the things that you mentioned foreshadowing earlier, it does feel a bit like this is the thing that everyone has decided will ultimately cost him, this kind of linked-in high-performance language, the sense that he probably knows what Mark Wahlberg's daily routine is.
Yep. Wakes up and does the blue bottles of soda into the seltzer into the washes his face.
He's got a big ice bath for his face. He's doing that on a desk with a computer on it, despite the fact that that's clearly dangerous. It feels like that is the thing that people have decided is slightly odd about Rossini rather than the unconventional background.
Yeah.
But the problem is that the evidence that we've got doesn't warrant bringing any of it up, because he keeps winning football matches.
I know you keep saying, self-doubt, where does that come from? I mean, every press conference is, sir, would you like a truckload of self-doubt? I mean, it is amazing. And I'm laughing when you said the only 2 losses have come in the Carabao, because there's that tweet that's out there, the great one about, do I care about the Carabao? Well, if you split the words, care, abu, about, care about. I mean, God bless, he's never going to beat the allegations, and all he does is just DJ Khaled it and keep winning. And I think it's really, really fascinating. It's Chelsea just 1 point off the top 4, Leeds and Burnley at home in their next 2 before a tantalising tilt with Arsenal, which looms large March the 1st. Up north to another curious manager situ. This is all it is. The Premier League is just about songs and odd managerial situations. Newcastle 2, Brentford 3. Just an emotional seesaw of a tilt. Tiny Brentford. 4th win in 5 on the road. First victory at St James's Park since 1934. Filled with shock and awe and narrative misdirection. Newcastle felt like they were going to win it after they fought their way back to 2-2 with passion and emotion. They tied things up late with a Bruno Guimaraes penalty. Appeared there'd only be one winner when that ball went in. But then the excellent Dango Ouattara simply went downfield, lashed home through Nick Pope's legs. And Brentford, a team who lost their manager, their captain, their 2 top scorers. The football world's entire consensus was Premier League doom for them before the season. Club with a $70 million payroll who keep defying the consensus that league table placement correlates exactly with financial might. They're currently raw. In 7th place, Keith Andrews. We laughed when he was appointed the set-piece coach. They've just rolled up their sleeves. Legitimate chance to bring European football to the G10 next season. How do they do it?
Playing to their strengths, appointing well, recruiting well, always having a succession plan in place, understanding their position in the hierarchy, I think is really important. Their recruitment's been really smart for a long, long time. They are, like Brighton, like Bournemouth, they are not reliant on individuals. They're not built around one player, 2 players, one manager. They kind of are a system that keeps grinding on, regardless of the parts that are in place. And it has been incredible to watch them. They are level on points with Liverpool, which feels almost harsh on Brentford, Like Brentford are having a much better season than Liverpool. Brentford should really be above them. It's been an incredible achievement.
Yeah, that's it. We're watching managerial appointments, songs and ideas of football. I'm actually the owner of Brentford, Matthew Benham, who's a remarkable human being, remarkable brain. Going to spend some time with him. The Sloan MIT data conference. Come be with us if you go in there. I can't wait for that. For Newcastle, Eddie Howe talked about post-game how he was, quote, facing a harsh reality. He felt, quote, angry with himself, which was Newcastle's 4th defeat in 5 games, all comps. Newcastle 12th in the Premier League, 10 points from both Champions League place and relegation. Team were booed off. A lot of media rumbling about Howe's job security. I've got to say, the travelling Newcastle support, they were being beaten 3-0 in the Carabao midweek at the Etihad. They chanted Eddie Howe's name quite loudly, which was a very powerful moment. There's a lot going wrong. Results, yeah. Injuries, yeah. $380 million spent on 6 players this summer, few of whom who've added, let's say, instant impact, fatigue perhaps from the pursuit of all those trophies. They head to a sad-off that you mentioned at Tottenham on Tuesday night. Howe said, I'd resign if I wasn't still right for the job. I mean, Raw, where there's smoke, there's fire, where there's a crackling sound in the media. Is the thin ice for nice guy Eddie Howe, or is he the front man for a quite strange project? There's, the Saudi owners felt like they came in, they saw, they raised hopes, and they kind of lost interest.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing with Newcastle. Eddie Howe's not made mistakes. There's been shortcomings with him, so I think that he is overly reliant on a core group of players. I think he hasn't been able to change his style to make Newcastle more kind of enduring when they're competing in the Champions League as well as the Premier League. There are things that he's not done as well as he might. But the bigger issue with Newcastle is the kind of existential aimlessness of it. There's a great piece in The Guardian about this by Jonathan Liu last week, I think. The Saudis came in promising all this stuff, and they've basically not really done any of it. They've done the kind of low-hanging fruit bits of signing players, but that was relatively early on. Now, there's a little bit of kind of drift setting in. There's no new training ground, there's no new stadium, there's no plans for a new stadium. It feels as though they've not necessarily lost interest, but they've not had a plan beyond, we'll take this team from 17th to the Champions League. It feels as though the summer was lost, partly because of a kind of self-damaging desire to keep hold of Alexander Isak for as long as possible. No one has come out of that deal well. The whole thing looks cursed, to be perfectly honest. But Newcastle have suffered too, because it meant that they were getting their replacements in so late. Voltemade and Wissa haven't been bad, but they've not been kind of outstanding successes. It does feel a little bit like they're maybe reaching a crunch point this summer and they have to make a decision. But I genuinely don't think the issue with Newcastle is Eddie Howe. I think the issue is deeper, further back, and more to do with the ownership and what they want this club to be and whether they know how to get there. I think that's the important bit.
Back to Friday night, Leeds 3, Nottingham Forest 1. I think the awesome power of Leeds United at home, winner of 76% of their points at their home ground, highest proportion of any club in England, coupled with the inevitability of Daniel Farke, their manager, at night. Dude has 19 wins, 3 draws, 0 losses at home as Leeds manager when it's dark, which is, I think, ultimately testament to the passion of the Leeds fans in that bear pit, which proved completely too much for Forest, fell apart after conceding. The joy of the night for me, Dominic Calvert-Lewin adding a diving Chester, I think I'd call it, to seal the deal. 10 Premier League goals on the season for Dom, more than the likes of Saka, Cole Palmer, Mo Salah. No Englishman has more goals in the Premier League this season. Phenomenal, endearing, resilient, worthy of the Leeds fans' chants. England number 9. Leeds, 9 points clear of the relegation zone. Are you willing to say they are safe, Raw, or you dare not tempt fate?
No, I don't want to tempt fate because I'm too emotionally invested in Leeds staying up. I really want Leeds to stay up, and I'm worried by what West Ham are doing. But yeah, the more games that the Premier League can rearrange so that they play them on Friday nights at Ellen Road, the more likely Leeds are to stay up. That feels like
league. Amazing.
They should do that more. The bigger issue I guess from this game is that the team between Leeds and West Ham, the team occupying 17th in the table, a team that I think most of us have assumed will just get out of the relegation battle because they've got lots of good players and they've got a good manager. Nottingham Forest are really in trouble.
Which could manage it?
I mean Sean Dyche, but you're taking a very Evertonian perspective on that, Rog.
Sorry, I just genuinely didn't know who you were talking about. Bournemouth 1, Aston Villa 1. I'm old enough to remember when we're asking ourselves if Villa's title run was for real. Now we're all about, are they true Champions League qualifier contenders? 22 minutes in, Morgan Rogers thrashed home brilliantly. Felt maybe that yet again Iraola would be undone by Bastadi, Unai Emery, who he's never beaten in 9 clashes. But Bournemouth, I love this team. They're so admirable. They create chance after chance. 10 minutes into the second half, 19-year-old Brazilian Ryan, freshly arrived from Vasco da Gama for $34 million, danced through. Q Samba and Son cliches, arced home. Semenyo replacement, already banging in a goal with confidence. I look at Bournemouth with such awe. Recruitment and scouting division, just pound for pound, the best in football.
Yeah, they keep doing it. And, to bring in a 19-year-old Brazilian who looks almost like an imprint of Antoine Semenyo, who has exactly the same characteristics, the same strength, the same kind of drive, the size I think is really important. Ryan is a big physical presence. That's a big thing in the Premier League at the moment. They are able, through their recruitment, to kind of take the £62 million, $80 million-ish, I guess, for Semenyo and keep rolling. And that is incredible. They had a difficult kind of Christmas period, didn't they, Bournemouth? But they seem to have come through that now. And they will be pushing back towards the top half of the table, which is kind of where you think Iraola deserves to be.
God, willing, and Tyler Adams on his way back, please God. In other games, Burnley 0, West Ham 2. West Ham coming like Omar. Clean sheet finally for Nuno in his 24th game. 3 points back from Nottingham Forest, and survival courtesy of goals from red hot Somerville 5-5. Tatty, former NYCFC star, chipping in with a header for his first Premier League goal. We said to the West Ham fans, you talked about great songs. They sang his first name, Tatty, to the tune of Lip Up Fatty by Bad Manners, which is just so amazing. Less amazing, Burnley fans started chanting, we want Scott Parker out. They're furious. I read a piece in The Guardian last Friday, Raw, about how Burnley fans feel about kind of ping-ponging up between the Premier League and the second tier. And the number said they feel proud that their tiny town is, in the spotlight of the top flight, but can't stand the agony of being smashed every week, which creates, in their words, a numbing apathy. And one fan said this: I do actually enjoy going back down to the Championship. You feel like you get up for the games. The atmosphere's better. I know some people said last season was the most boring promotion, but it was so good celebrating at the end of the year. Whereas fascinating for me to read that. We often look at relegation almost as a traumatic end of days agony. But that fan, it's like a reminder. Sometimes it's nicer to be the biggest fish in the smaller, dingier, murkier pond.
The problem is that relegation costs so much money. So the risk is that you're effectively saying it's good to go down as we win some football matches, but that might cost 50 people their jobs, and that's not something that should be celebrated. Burnley are very sensibly run, as you know, Rog. My instinct would be that they budget to not be in the Premier League every single season. They will not be thinking, we are reliant on this money, we have to spend all of it straight away. So they should be able to endure relegation a little bit better than some other clubs might be, West Ham, Nottingham Forest. And I get that. I've got friends who are obviously Leeds fans, Bournemouth fans, friends who support teams who've come up and down the divisions a little bit. And their view is the same, that it's not much fun being the team that is 15th best, 16th best, 17th best in the Premier League. And occasionally, it's quite nice to go in the Championship and be second best. Because it's much more, even if, Burnley weren't playing great football last season, but even if you're winning games 1-0, you're still winning games. There's tension. And sometimes it's happy. It's a happy tension. Whereas by this stage, after a long, hard winter, Burnley know they're getting relegated. They're not in that phase that Wolves are, where it's quite funny, because it's so certain that you're going down. You can't have gallows humour about it. It does just feel like this inevitable cloud that is gathering over you, and it must be hard to enjoy what you're watching, because what's the point of it?
Which leads us to Brighton 0, Crystal Palace 1. in really the winter is coming derby. We've talked about this clash before. It's curiously heartfelt, filled with spite and random rivalries, full of huff and puff. But honestly, really watchable from a neutral footballing POV. Highlighting this one of a very drab first half was Palace goalkeeper Dean Henderson miming lifting the FA Cup trophy to wind up Brighton fans like, we won something you haven't during a break in play. I'll just say mime shithousery, definitely top 3 kind of shithousery, and Dean Henderson is the Marcel Marceau of banter.
Absolutely, and I think it's important to have that in your arsenal. You've got to have that in your locker. You've got to be able to taunt. The Premier League's an international place. You've got to be able to taunt other people, other players, other fans in a variety of methods.
Without needing Duolingo.
Don't need words.
Yeah, Dean Henderson in this one, genuinely, what he did in goal was okay. What he did out of goal, just constantly as a wind-up merchant, was humanly awesome. Crystal Palace, 12 games without a win, started new 65 million by Strand Larsen, gave them a focal point. It's fascinating to watch that. In the second half, they rolled upfield. New arrival on loan to buy from Aston Villa, Gessan, cleverly fed. The quite speedy Ismail Assari lashed home in off for Bruggen's nose to add to the spite. I mean, it was really remarkable. And what was more remarkable, Brighton in a spite game, needing to get back, just a lack of fight. I think they had 1 shot on goal in each half, just 1 win in 12 now. Game ended with Brighton fans singing "You're getting sacked in the morning" to their child manager, Hertzler. Really a team and a manager, Raw, in real danger of just slipping into inertia.
Yeah, and it's easy to kind of dismiss Brighton's fans' concerns because this is still historically the best Brighton have ever been. There's no real risk of relegation. It's a bit of a nothing season for them, but they're safely mid-table. It hurts to lose to Palace. But at the same time, they see their team much more than anybody else does. They will have more of a sense of what it feels like to watch Brighton at the moment. And yeah, it's not been great. And I wonder whether there's a lack of kind of direction to Brighton, a lack of a sense of that they're going somewhere, or even that they have players in that team who feel like the next big thing, as they did when it was, when it was Alexis McAllister, when it was Moises Caicedo in that midfield. You would have felt at Brighton a feeling of these players are going somewhere. It's a privilege to watch these players. I'm not sure there's anyone in that squad at the moment to feel like that, or Hertzler's not making them look like that, and that's more of a problem.
Like Belieber,
who kind of was a thing and then hasn't really been a thing. But even if it's just him, that's maybe not enough, because Brighton do feel like they've lost a little bit of that kind of energy and that vim that was taking them up the table. It feels like they're treading water, and generally fans won't tolerate that.
Brighton minus vim equals Everton, which brings us to the final game. Fulham 1. Did this happen? Everton Football Club 2. I hate it when we play Fulham. It's just like a parade of human beings. Marco Silva, Alex Iwobi, on the bench Anthony Robinson, all just Avenger assembling to remind us that they used to play for us. We used to have them. Laura Dern's quote about when Billy Bob Thornton left her to marry Angelina Jolie, she said it felt like a sudden death. Is that hyperbolic, Ro? But that's how I felt.
I don't know. I wasn't involved in Laura Dern's marriage to Billy Bob Thornton. I feel like if that's how she feels, it's probably legitimate.
Well, you're not. I thought there were 3 of us in that marriage. Was that something else? Look, I mean, Fulham opened the scoring with a calamity own goal. Very Everton, excellent Pickford, parried a sharp shot from Raul Jimenez, only for the rebound to hit poor Vitaly Mikalenko unwittingly on the knee and bounce in. Everton fans immediately start melting down about David Moyes, his missionary position football. Second half, though, God bless, we create, we press. Fulham couldn't live with us attacking from the front, and suddenly Marco Silva oddly didn't adjust, which he normally does. Mikalenko, I don't even know where this came from, started to charge down the flank, nutmegged, dish assist like Nikola Jokic, your goal scorer, and after all, your Mud Dewsbury Hall, then off a corner, under pressure from Jake O'Brien. Leno, own goal. By the way, second time Bernd Leno scored for Everton. Also own goal when he was playing for Arsenal, which makes him one of our most potent strikers. We always say, sign of a great team is when they play poorly, yet still win. But Everton only play poorly. So are we the greatest team?
In the weeks when you win, yes. No, look, it's striking, Rog, the number of times that we've said today, this team is now on 1 win in 12, or they came into this game only having one win in 12. Or you get the kind of the the opposite situation where Spurs went to Old Trafford unbeaten in 4, lose, and now have only won 1 in 7. It's a really inconsistent league, and you do get teams who suddenly click. Fulham had their moment. Up until a couple of weeks ago, Fulham were going really, really well. It's Everton's turn now. And it changes like that. One result gives a team so much confidence. It can build just a little bit of a head of steam that will carry you through 2, 3, 4, 5 games. Everton, we said it before at the start. We said it before earlier in the season. Everton were on the cusp of the European places, and they're the only team that no one says they're on a charge for Europe. Everyone just looks at Everton in 6th and goes, it won't last, and moves on. But it's possible. If they time their run, they could potentially, I don't think Champions League, but I think Europa League, certainly Conference League, if Everton time their run, there is that to play for.
Raw. Everton playing in any tournament that has its own anthem. I mean, I'd bite your arm off for the Florida Cup again. All ones know what that is. It's ecstatic. And I've got to tell you, I'm starting to believe, and that makes me so anxious. Like, all I'm going to do is talk about how I don't believe, because I don't want to curse it. So you're going to get a lot of me predicting Everton losses for the rest of the season. But it is fascinating. We've done the double over 2 teams, one managed by Marco Silva, ex-manager Fulham, and the other, Nottingham Forest, ex-manager Sean Dyche, which I love. Proof spite is the rocket fuel of human motivation. But we are in the heady heights of 8th. Moyes got ripped apart on social media at half-time. Everton fans ended up chanting his name. He's won 11 of the 22 road games since his return, which is unbelievable. Even more unbelievable, he's done it without fullbacks and a real striker too. It is raw. It's an incredible, it's almost blue sorcery.
Yeah, and I think because Moyes is such an established figure, because Everton is such a big club historically, they're not talked about in terms of, Brentford or Bournemouth doing something really unexpected. But Moyes is operating on probably more of a shoestring than either of those teams. When did Everton last go and spend a huge amount of money on a Brazilian 19-year-old? Not for quite a long time, Rog. It's been a really positive season in the round for Everton. It hasn't always felt like that, I appreciate. But if they were to finish top half, if they were maybe to sneak into the Conference League, if they were to get into the Conference League, they could definitely win it, Rog. That would be a real sign of progress. And you hope at some point that Texas's premier Toyota dealers, the Friedkins, will put a bit of money into the transfer budget and allow Moyes to maybe get those fullbacks he desperately needs. We
all drive Toyotas now, Rob. By the way, if we do qualify for Europe, the Moyes knee slide at the full whistle onto that field is going to be I'm going to weave it in a gorgeous tapestry. Okay, let's letter it up with a question from the mighty John Glasgow. I'm sure in America they call him John Glasgow, with some important follow-ups from last week's podcast about great footballing celebrations. Raw, do the honours.
Here is the letter. First, I'd like to say that this is my favourite show. I've been following and listening for several years, but we've crossed a line and entered into a new territory, a new appreciation for the show.
Oh, we have we?
I often feel as though we've crossed the line, Rog. Every father of a son, even before they're born, wonders how they're going to broach the topic and have the talk with his child as he grows towards manhood. This is taking a weird turn. I would like to thank you for creating a safe space for me to finally engage in a meaningful discussion with my 10-year-old son about firing ping-pong balls out of one's anus, a la Roger's preferred goal-scoring celebration. There's the weird turn, Rog. It's further definitive proof that Men in Blazers is not just a show about football, it's a show about life. Thank you. John Glasgow, California.
Oh, God bless you, John Glasgow. Please email me and tell me if it is John Glasgow in America or do they call you John Glasgow? That is a letter, Raw, of great profundity. And when he said a funny turn, it came back to us. It didn't turn away from us.
Yeah, it leaned into it.
It is a letter I would expect from a man named after one of the most magical cities in the world, a city that admittedly, in my visits there, found to be extremely non-rational in the best of ways. But what I think John's asking us, Raw, via the oft-used metaphor, obviously, of anus-secreted ping-pong balls, is what is football all about to you? I've never asked you this. What is it that you're watching, that you experience when you watch, that you believe it reveals, that keeps you utterly obsessed with the sport?
Well, I think leaving aside like tribalism, because obviously you have a kind of loyalty to the team you support, and that you want them to make you happy, to make you not be sad. Maybe is what you want your team to do. Like, please don't make me sad.
Don't take away my sadness. Go on.
It's a form of connecting to people, and obviously it doesn't recognise gender, but I think for men in particular who've struggled to maybe talk about more emotional things traditionally than women, I think it plays a really important role in that. I've been in some of the sort of darkest moments of my life. It's football that I've talked to my family about, and that I think is really, really important. But the game itself, like more broadly outside of that, I think it's a sport. It's a sport of scarcity and it's a sport of complexity, and it means that when something incredible happens, and that might just be any goal, not only do you get this moment of wonder that the universe is aligned for that thing to happen, but the thing that always gets me about football is the fans. The best thing to watch when a goal goes in is not the players celebrating. I hate it, Rog, when they cut away to the manager. I don't care how the manager feels. Show me the stand. Show me what the people who travel all over the country, all over the world to watch that team, show me how they are feeling. Does you get this glimpse of unbridled, unaffected, unadorned joy? And if you think about it, you don't see many pictures like that.
God, that's really amazing, man. We just did a film with Eberici Eze that's going to come out very soon, where I play chess with him in London. And he talks about that FA Cup final goal, that experience of just looking at the fans in that second, their faces, and realising what he'd done had created for them emotionally, which is really, I mean, a beautiful refraction of what you're saying. Look, for me, anyone who listens to this will know this, so goes out to the smarter tactical brains than me all over the place. Many of them. There's footballers who've been in locker rooms that can talk about what they think happens at half time with Mikel Arteta. But when I watch football, I experience a number of things. You've hit some of them, Raw, that I think I know are really extra rare currencies, rarer and rarer, unfortunately, in our life and in our world. The sense of profound connection to other people that you talk about. And by the way, that's a global connection. When that Dom Soboslai shot went in, you felt that sudden surge, and you knew millions of people around the world were doing that. It's why I love the MIB Discord, to be honest. It's just like that is that pulse that we're all sharing and driving us. I'm also hyper aware. I talked about this a lot. I've written this book about it, about memory making, collective memory making that's going on in real time. But in the moment, Raw, I watched something. It was actually Martin Tyler. I interviewed him in 2010 ahead of the World Cup, and he gave me this construct, and I think it's true. He said, these are his words, he said, football stripped down is a game of human decision making. He said, when a footballer takes control of the ball, they've essentially got three decisions they can make. Do they run with it? Do they pass with it? Or do they shoot? And Martin Tyler said, simply put, the greatest players make better decisions more of the time than the merely good ones. And when you view the game like that, you're really just watching, and this is for you, John Glasgow, what am I watching? I'm watching humanity reveal itself in real time, second to second in the decision making. By the way, transcendent creativity, yes, but also same in the hopeless self-sabotaging mistake moments. And it's almost the mirror of human existence, that revelation that nourishes me in games great or Everton, and I hope it will forever.
Yeah, it's a feeling of belonging, but it's also a feeling of kind of outsourcing your emotions to these other people and hoping they get things right. And I think that's nice to know that you're sad, but it's not your fault, it's their fault.
That's so funny.
I'm sad. I woke up sad today.
Yeah.
Because of Bernardo Silva. It wasn't the shortcomings in me as a person or my failure to do any exercise over the weekend. It was Bernardo Silva. He made me sad.
So funny. Football ultimately as just an emotional transplant for people like me that have no emotions of our own. Thank you for your letter, John Glasgow /Glasgow.
Glasgow. Glasgow. That's how you say that.
In America, please start saying his name.
Glasgow.
Yeah. Just keep writing to us here, meninblazers@gmail.com. I do try and answer everything that rolls in. That is it for today. Want to give huge thanks to Bank of America, official bank of US soccer and the FIFA World Cup 2026 for supporting the Men in Blazers media network. Discover what's possible in sports and in life. What would you like the power to do? I'm headed back to Atlanta this week to come and do a thing or two. Thank you for all your food recs, which I will try and visit while I'm there. Raw, you're a beautiful human being. We will rock it with you on Friday. Thank you.
I'll see you Friday after another Liverpool defeat.
That's the spirit. This is Rog saying, let's not take a second of watching football together for granted and courage.